Yeah, we borrowed money from friends and family.
Yeah.
$5 and $10 and $20,000 at a time. And yeah, I remember one guy he'd be in the office every week, like saying, "Hey, when am I getting paid?" We'd give him $5,000, or we'd give him a little bit and take him to lunch and, kind of make him a little bit more comfortable with the extension. And
Okay, welcome to another episode of Bootstraps and Battle Scars. This is the podcast that I created by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. And so I've made it my mission to find people who have been entrepreneurial, who have founded businesses, who run businesses, who have had some success, who have had some failures, learned some lessons along the way. And I want them to share their stories and share their experiences so that whoever's watching this can learn and take away from it whatever happens to be their need at the time. So today, I brought on a longtime friend of mine. We've known each other for 20 years. We did the math.
20 years.
So 20 years, yeah.
It's simple math, so it wasn't
simple
that
math.
hard. Yeah.
It was super easy math, actually.
Yeah.
And
by the way, you are Chris Shurian.
Oh, and I am Chris Shurian.
Yes.
I am your host.
Yes.
And the creator of Bootstraps and Battle Scars.
Very important.
Whatever that means, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I invited Brad for a couple of reasons. One is Brad is not afraid of the microphone. You've been in the business.
Not these, anyway.
So,
there's some microphones that you have to be afraid of.
Scary, right? Yeah. Right. So he's comfortable behind the microphone, more comfortable than I am, actually. So having Brad sitting across the table from me helps me calm down a little bit.
Wow.
So there you go. You're welcome.
That's
but also, having known Brad for a long time, Brad has a lot of great experience. I know you've started businesses. You've had some challenges in business. You've been involved in other, creative director, marketing, sales. You've done it all. You've also been in radio, which is probably a few stories you might want to hear.
Yeah, it's interesting
yeah,
times.
Like, your mom always told me you have a great face for radio.
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
she was right, too.
She was right.
Yes.
Yeah, she was right. So I'm introducing Brad Davis. Like I said, we've known each other for 20 years. And not only have we known each other, but we've done work together. I've done projects where you and your team have been our marketing and advertising agency, and you've been my creative director, and we've had a lot of success in that. And so, Brad, welcome to Bootstraps and Battle Scars.
Thank you very much. Which do I get to see first? Bootstraps or Battle Scars?
First, we're going to let you do a quick little introduction of who you are. Now, I know I did a great job.
That was pretty good.
I did a great job.
I don't know how to.
Yeah.
What should we add to that?
I mean, you have to tell the truth. I can embellish. So, tell me a little bit about you, your experience, what you've been doing for the last 20 years, and why I invited you here. Like, what do you have to offer me?
Well, I guess we're going to find that out,
Yeah.
see if it's valuable or not. But so we met 20 years ago. I was running a company out of Provo, a manufacturing company that kind of catered to the multi-level marketing groups that
Like promotional products,
so well known for. Yeah, promotional products. To explain it very simply, it was promotional products, but that's where we started, and we built it to an overseas manufacturing company, really a marketing agency that brought campaign development strategy to the pitch, with the outcome hoping that we would get to manufacture everything that we pitched. And it worked out pretty well because it gave us that take away the middleman opportunity. And
so back in the day, if I had a MLM, there's one on every street corner, and I wanted coffee cups, then I would come to you, and not only would you say, yeah, we can get coffee cups and print them, but you're also having them manufactured overseas and bringing them direct from the manufacturers.
What we did was kind of a big difference in what the market offered at the time. At the time, you could say, I want 100 coffee cups. And yes, so many people could do it. I mean, and there was a lot of guys doing it out of their basement, out of their garage, paying their Saab payment, every month, being really happy with that.
Saab, like the car, Saab.
Gremlin, Dart.
I'm sorry, Saab was a car. Yeah.
But anybody could do 100 or 1,000. What we were doing, and this is how it fit into the multi-level marketing world. We were doing thousands, 10,000s at a time, which allowed us to take advantage of that economy of scale that overseas had available. So one day we got a big fat order, and I said, I'm going to Hong Kong in 2 days, and that's exactly how it happened.
Wow. So kind of a supply and demand thing.
Oh, yeah. We had the order in hand. We had the PO, and we said, how are we going to do this? And the answer was, we're going to do it.
So Saab guy could sell me those, but he'd have to source it through somebody else. And
He'd buy it from a supplier here in the U.S. and
Okay.
they would decorate it, and he would order it.
and they'd have to mark it up.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
2 or 3 levels
along
of
the way.
markup. Yeah,
But you're like, okay, we're going direct.
correct.
And you had to go direct and figure it out.
Correct.
See, I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
Like that, like you got the order, then you said, okay, we'll figure it out.
I called a friend of mine whose parents were living in Hong Kong, and I said, everybody knows somebody in Hong Kong, right? That manufactures, because that's the only thing that happens in Hong Kong: money and manufacturing, right?
Okay, yeah.
So he said, give me a day. He called me back and he says, my parents know somebody who owns a factory that says he'll talk to you. And I said, that's all we need. I bought a plane ticket. 48 hours later, on a plane,
No kidding.
met Lester,
Lester.
in Hong Kong at this
Lester is
little.
Lester is not his real name.
Well, it's his kind of real name. Yeah.
Lester, yeah. Okay, so hold on a second. And do you speak the language? No.
I speak Japanese.
You speak Japanese,
Right?
So yeah, okay.
So-
Japanese, Chinese.
And he speaks English because we're in
Sure.
Hong Kong. But once you get over into mainland, that's where you kind of lose the ability to really piece together conversations.
But in Hong Kong, everyone's pretty
Pretty good. Yeah, and he was great, and he walked us through like we did this big bag order. I think it was 10,000 bags, and he did it, and we delivered it. It was great. But that was the genesis for what happened, the next decade.
Okay, so you're doing this, you're running this business, selling, and now you got the one order, and now you're like, okay, it's on.
Well,
Let's go.
oh yeah, now we've got the tools.
Yeah.
So let's go fix a bunch of problems. So it made us more competitive. It allowed us to hire more people. It allowed us to really capture more margin while still coming in under what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. And Saab guy
pretty good
couldn't
business
handle
model.
10,000 bags, could he? Or he could, but it'd just be
He'd
like
come to us.
it's super expensive.
He'd come to us.
Yeah. So once you had that first order under your belt, like what effect did that have on you guys? I'm picturing in my mind that for one, there was a level of confidence that came with that.
It was floodgates.
Floodgates.
I mean, once we did it successfully and saw the margins that were capturable
Yeah.
with that process, we went, who else do we know, right? And we went from MLM to MLM and just tried to break into that.
And you could sit in front of these guys with confidence saying, oh yeah, 10,000 bags, no problem.
100,000
Piece of
bags,
cake,
no
100,000
problem.
bags, no problem.
We were doing plastics, we were doing bags, we were doing headwear, we were doing. If they wanted it, we did it. Ultimately, hired a little office in Hong Kong and had 3 staff members and a QC manager, and it was, yeah, it worked out pretty well.
And then all you had to do is find. I imagine Lester was good at manufacturing certain things, but maybe there
he
was
was a
other
bag
things.
manufacturer, yeah,
And so then he would say, if you called Lester and said, Lester, I need coffee cups,
which I did.
he knew a guy.
He knew a guy,
And then he would put you in touch with that guy.
right?
Oh, there you go. And then you'd go make coffee cups.
Yeah. And I think the third guy that we actually did business with, we ended up hiring full time. And then we had boots on the ground. And it made it a lot easier. Oh, we were over there all the time,
That's
walking
cool.
through factories. Yeah, it was great.
So when I ask you the question, the title of our little podcast here is Bootstraps and Battle Scars. So if I say, Brad, what is bootstrapping? What's bootstraps mean to you? How would you answer that question?
So the bootstraps, in this particular example that we just kind of went through,
Yeah.
bootstrapping was, how much is this going to cost us? We don't have that money.
Because you don't get paid till you deliver.
Right.
Okay.
Correct. And China doesn't offer terms.
Yeah. So if you want bags, you have to pay for bags.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's yet to be proven. In this case, bags were yet to be proven. So we were really kind of betting on the whatever showed up. So, we looked into all of can we go to the bank and get a loan? Do we have to factor the invoice? who do we borrow money from that we know? It was way ahead of what we were prepared for at
Because
the
you
time.
didn't have a bunch of money in your bank account. You're young.
Yeah, the company was doing okay. By that time, I'd taken on 2 partners, and so we had an operations guy and 2 kind of sales income generators kind of thing, and one was an operator, and I kind of the visionary kind of brain of the whole thing, and he was better at making lists and finishing things, and I was better at the creative and coming up with the pitch, and so it worked really well at the time. But yeah, money was the hard the hard bootstrap for at the time,
And
and it always was.
Yeah, yeah.
We were chasing receivables all the time because we had the next PO, that we had to pay for.
Right. So if people are paying their bills and you're taking that money and putting it into the next project, next project.
Correct.
And then hopefully there's a little bit left over at the end of the day for you to feed your family.
Correct.
Yeah, that's always a game.
Always fun.
Okay, so how did you do it? I would be curious to know
All the
how
above.
did you do it?
All the above. At first, I think we factored one order and found out that that's giving up a little too much.
And what's that mean, factoring an order?
You take an invoice to the bank or a factoring company. There's typically companies, but you take
Like
that
a
invoice.
lender of some sort?
Or a purchase order from whoever it is.
Okay.
You take that purchase order in to the company and say, this is a $300,000 purchase order. This is how much it's going to cost us. This is how much time we think we need the money for. The factoring company says we will loan based on the promise from XYZ company, Melaleuca or New Skin or whoever it was.
Yeah.
We will loan based on their reputation. It's clearly a real PO. You've been in business long enough. You've produced. You've got a history. So it's really more of a trust-based thing. But you give up some margin more than you want to give up. I think. Well, you do.
Right. And I imagine what they're going to charge you for that money depends on your experience, who the buyer is. I mean, there's all the factors that they look at this invoice or this PO to determine how much you're going to lend you and how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's variables there. Yeah.
Which is which in the retail world that's a legitimate funding source, isn't it? I mean, people are still practicing that, aren't they? Or is that
there's
is that more of
factoring
a-
companies. There's big factoring companies out there. So clearly, they're still in operation and people still use them. But
It's not Vinny down in the corner with a brown paper bag full of cash.
sometimes. Yeah, I mean,
This might be that guy.
yeah, sometimes. I mean, we borrowed money from friends and family.
Yeah.
$5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000 at a time. And I remember one guy he'd be in the office every week, like saying, "Hey, when am I getting paid?" We'd give him $5,000, or we'd give him a little bit and take him to lunch and, kind of make him a little bit more comfortable with the extension. And we had credit cards. I mean, it got to a point where the company really was kind of sustaining itself, but those initial, year or two of growth was all of the above.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Okay, so you did this company, and how long did that last? How long did you do that? Because I know you've transitioned into other things, but
That company's still around.
oh, it is.
Doing real well, yeah. Yep. I got out about 8 years in. And that's a longer story maybe for a different podcast.
In fact, I think 20 years ago when you and I were first associated, I think you were kind of in the throes of that exit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think
Would
it was
that
a couple
have been?
years after.
A couple years after
Yeah, a couple
that, but-
years after we got
Yeah.
involved, and then it was it's been only 15 years since that's been
Mm-hmm.
out. But they're still around, and that Hong Kong office is still thriving, and it's a great business model, and there's no reason it should fail because it's a great business model and has all the right pieces in place.
But now there's other people that have caught on. Other people are doing that.
Totally.
But they have momentum. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They know the process. They're good at it. They probably have relationships, and they're not going anywhere.
There's not a ton of like the competitive market. There's not a big handful of companies that are doing it. There's 2 or 3 specifically that we considered competition, and they kind of entered either a little bit before us or kind of with us, built up, a rapport with their clients, right? And they were kind of doing the same thing. But the thing that changed the market was the introduction of Alibaba.
Alibaba, like
Yeah.
the Amazon of
So
Asian manufacturing.
20 years ago, 15 years ago, anybody who had gone to Hong Kong saw Alibaba because they were introducing it on the trade show floors. Like, hey, this is the new thing. In Hong Kong
Okay.
or in Guangzhou.
Okay.
So you'd go to the Canton Fair, for example, and Alibaba would be the number one sponsor. You'd see it everywhere. And they'd interview everybody. And at the time I said, man, if this catches on, we're in big trouble. Right?
Because Alibaba. So explain how Alibaba works and what it's the platform. 'Cause I think I know a little bit about it.
So Alibaba's, I think, the most traded public stock on the market right now. Like it's one of the strongest stocks on the market.
In the world?
In the world. He's one of the richest the richest guys
Okay.
in the world. So what the concept was, this Chinese entrepreneur came in, and what he did is he built a network that connected factories to end users.
And the end user being here.
Being here, being
Anywhere,
all over the world.
Anywhere.
But yeah,
But
the primary market was
you
the
no
US
longer have to
initially.
go call your buddy's parents who live in Hong Kong. Now it's on
Or
Alibaba.
the guy paying the stop payment, or us, or I mean, if you were smart enough and you had a big enough need, but Alibaba, the concept brought the capability of 10 pieces to the little guy at a pretty significant discount. And the upside, right, the value proposition behind that in China was you're going to sell it to my company for $1. We're going to mark it up to 5 or 10, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and what they're doing is look, you do this, but you could sell it to the little guy for 3 or 4.
And you're going to triple, quadruple your margin,
Yeah,
your normal
I mean,
price. Yeah.
It made a ton of sense.
Right, because people here on Alibaba are saying, well, I'm going to pay $10, but I can get it for 5, and they think they're getting a great
Totally.
deal. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow. So is it still Alibaba? It's a thing?
Oh, it's a big thing. It's a huge thing.
And I can still go on Alibaba and I can buy stuff. And is there, because I remember buying from Asia or China was quantities. You had to buy a container full of whatevers, but can you buy smaller?
Yeah.
And now with shipping, right?
You can go onto Alibaba right now, and you can find a supplier that will sell you 10 pieces of something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
It completely wrecked the market, the promotional products market. It took the steam out of so many companies.
But I imagine a company like yours, there's still a certain level of, like, you hire someone to do it, you hire someone to do it right, you hire someone that knows what they're doing. The quality control is a big thing, right?
Huge.
I mean, you said quality
Huge.
control.
Lots of people got burned. We've been burned several times.
Where
I've been
something
burned
shows
after.
up.
Yeah,
A
and it's wrong.
container full of shit shows up.
It's wrong.
Can I
Yeah.
say that word on this?
I hope so.
Yeah, I like that word. It's a good word. Yeah. Okay. So quality control is a big issue.
Huge, and which was why it was imperative to get boots on the ground in China. Was we had people who would go to the factory, spot check before it was loaded into the container, and say, "Yep, this is what we ordered." Sign off on it, and then send it off to the
which
shipping
costs you money. But man, when a bad order shows up, it's terrible.
It
'cause
costs
the
us
customer rejects it.
$150 to have somebody go out there,
Yeah, no big
travel,
deal. Right.
Back and forth. It was slick.
Now on Alibaba, I don't know why we're talking about Alibaba. Maybe we can get him on the show. I'm sure
I want to be here if you do.
one of the richest men in America would show up here for sure. Yeah. So is there? I mean, how's the quality control work with Alibaba? Because, like, how do I know if I order 10 of these, it's going to show up and be good? Is there
It's a
some sort
risk.
of a there's still risk?
It's gotten better in the last 5, 6, 7 years because it's a publicly traded company and they have to answer to performance. And the factories, they've implemented a lot of QC on their own side and some quality assurance guarantees, and so it's evolved pretty effectively now. But we hear stories of people. I hear stories of people still getting something that they didn't order. And the problem is, what do? Do you go and sue? Do you go to Hong Kong and file suit? Well, no, because factories shut down every single day if they're really under the gun.
Plus, you're only spending $50. Like, I actually ordered something the other day. I was on the social media somewhere scrolling, and the interweb gypsies felt like I needed to buy this particular sweatshirt.
Yes.
And it was a cool sweatshirt. The picture of the sweatshirt was cool.
Yeah.
Right? It had this American flag. It looked kind of haggard and, worn. And I thought, I'd wear that.
Yeah.
So I ordered it, and, it showed up. It's a piece of crap.
Wasn't quite what you expected.
No, it was stupid. The material was stupid. It was just not even near. In fact, I opened it up. I'm like, what is this? And I forgot I'd ordered it.
Who ordered this?
I know. My wife looks at me like, what is that? I'm like, it's not supposed to look like this. But yeah, I can't even go find the email confirmation. It wasn't from any real source. So I can't even return it. I don't even know how to return it.
Right.
So what do? I'm like, okay, well, $34, whatever. I'll make it a work sweatshirt. I mean, it really was terrible. So that happens, right?
Right.
But
And it still cost them $5. They still made a ton of money on it. And even then, even companies like ours, existing promotional companies, would still try to charge 35 to 60 or 70 bucks.
Right.
Right. But you're seeing the value there is 35. Like, oh, I don't want to pay $100 for this. It says the value is $100. So I'm going to pay 35 here.
Yeah.
And you'll risk the potential loss of, well, if
and
it
I've
sucks, it's only 35 bucks.
And
right?
this isn't the first time I've done it.
Right.
But I did it, and I'm like, oh, not one of those.
Yeah.
Come on. It got me, got me.
The industry has evolved into relationships, into relationships over production capability, because now Alibaba's there.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So the companies that are surviving right now are surviving because they have good salespeople, they have strong operations and support, and they have relationships with companies that are able to order 100,000 pieces at a time.
Right. So so the relationship still sometimes trumps the transactional part. I mean, there's a personal relationship and there's a transactional relationship, and the relationship still matters.
Sometimes
for some people.
It's not all about money, like the bottom
sometimes
line.
it
right?
matters. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So some business owner says, look, I might pay more than my assistant going on Alibaba, but I know these guys, and I know they're going to deliver. And I know if there's a problem, I can make a phone call.
They'll stand
We're not
behind
trying
it,
to figure
yeah.
it out. Yeah. So that is worth something.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So you did this company for a while, and then now you did some radio.
That was before this company.
That was before this company.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about this little radio thing. You actually went to school and studied broadcast journalism, I think, right?
At the U.
At the University of Utah.
University of Utah, because this is probably a worldwide syndicated podcast, right? So
Yeah, I got to clarify.
University of
they're gonna
Utah.
be like,
yeah. Go Utes.
Yeah, go. You're not supposed to look at the camera.
Am I supposed to look at that camera?
Yeah.
Okay. So broadcast journalism. I got an internship at a radio station, which I thought would be fun for a minute, and then kind of worked through the ranks of the radio station. And by the time I had the opportunity to take a job as a broadcaster, right, as an anchor, I was making double what they offered me as a TV anchor in radio. And at the time,
So
I was
you had
like married. I had a little
you had an
kid.
opportunity
Like,
to go into TV.
yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so you had to choose between radio and TV.
Right.
Okay, radio paid more money.
At the time, it was pay more money. Now,
How long ago was this?
Radio was 91 to 97.
And
98.
and how much was this big money opportunity?
Oh yeah, I was making $46,000 a year, and the first offer was in Boise for 3 packages, 3 stand-ups a day, so three projects a day. Morning, lunch, and evening broadcast, and they were paying $22,000.
Okay.
In like a market, I think it was market number 70. Something.
Right. So
It was,
not a powerhouse for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you see that you look at the long tail approach to that and you say, well, okay, you go into smaller market and then 2 years you go into middle market if you're good, and, another couple
Work
years
your
you
way
go.
up
Yeah.
to-
So where would I be today? Who knows? But
I have a story about that actually. I can
you
take
kind
over.
of do, huh?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my dad.
Yeah.
My dad. My father got into radio early on.
It was actually one of the first things we connected over.
They may have been. We had
Because
that.
you said, "Oh, my dad is," and I'm like, "I think I know your dad."
Yeah, that's
Or
right.
know of your dad.
Yeah. So I remember he started cleaning. He cleaned in a radio back in Boston, Massachusetts. He worked in this radio station, just would empty trashes, and somehow he got on the air. But his goal was to work his way up. And there was a time when he was a pretty popular DJ in Texas, and he really wanted to get into LA market because back then that was the LA
That's
or
where
New
you
York,
were going.
right? LA or
Yep,
New York.
right.
So he really wanted to get in the LA market, and this is in the late 50s, early 60s, and he actually moved
When DJs were really, really kind of movers
radio.
and
It was
shakers. They
AM
were-
radio.
Yeah, for
AM
sure.
radio.
Yep.
Who know? I mean, there's people that don't even know what that is, but AM radio, and so he took a job at a little radio station in Tijuana that broadcast into the LA market because back then
91X.
they had to hear you.
Was it 91X?
I have no idea.
They got to stick in Tijuana, but
Yeah,
I didn't know others were out
So
broadcasting
he got a
out of
job.
Tijuana.
So he lived in San Diego,
Yeah.
and every morning he would drive into Tijuana and broadcast because he wanted to be heard in the LA market.
Yeah.
And sure enough, after a couple of years, KMPC, which was a juggernaut of LA market of AM radio, picked him up and hired him, and he became famous. But
Yeah.
so yeah, my father he played that game. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, back to your story. Yeah, let's hear this. You were doing the radio.
Well, there were 2 eras in radio that were huge. The one that your dad was in, and kind of that late 80s to kind of late 90s era, 10, 12 years in there where radio really was influential.
Mm-hmm.
And DJs were kind of, prioritized. You'd show up and hundreds of people would show up to see you and to talk, and it was kind of ridiculous.
Because we had radios in our cars too. We didn't have streaming. We didn't have and cassette tapes. We had cassettes, 8-track, cassettes, and radio. There was no streaming.
You might have had 8 tracks.
No, I think my mom did. Okay, anyway, so back in the day,
right,
radio was a big deal.
Yep. So we worked through that, and kind of similar thing. Like I was hanging around enough that that Christmas Eve, Christmas morning spot opened up, and I said, I'll take that. And then I was just in. That was my open opportunity, and that's how radio began. And I think at the end of it, X96 came along. That started there, and then 107.5 came along to kind of compete with them, and a small or medium handful of us said we'd like to go over there, and did.
I worked at 107.5. I think we talked when it was the mix.
And it was the mix.
Yeah. I was a sales guy. I was in radio. That was awesome.
But now radio is like kind of sad. Nobody's listening to radio as much anymore. I still have some good friends in radio, but the ones that are still there are there in morning positions, and it's the only position that really is valuable. Only position that'll really pay you enough to raise a family and live.
Yeah, and the morning commute, that whole thing.
And radio stations, they go in and out all the time. I mean, DJs get fired all the time, and it's just not a real reliable option.
Okay, so why did you leave radio?
Just for that. They came to me. They gave me a promotion. They gave me 3 radio stations to market. I was still on air with one, and they said, this was after a big merge. Citadel was coming in and just buying everything.
They buy up radio stations.
Yeah, they're buying everything.
They're not owned by one. Okay.
Yeah, so we had this opportunity of growth, and what they said was, you're now at the top of this pay scale. So everybody in this marketing / whoever is like you across the company, you're the highest paid in this category. So after this raise, don't expect another. If you want to stay here, you've got to go into programming or you got to go into sales. Programming took me out of Salt Lake. Sales was radio sales, and I think you've established.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So I jumped in the entrepreneur, world and said, time to go.
So when you were at the radio station, you probably always dreamed about being the promotional product guy, right?
No.
Like probably in high school, you're like, I want to grow up and be promotional product guy.
If I could only provide a $1.11 coffee mug with a 2-color logo on each side. That was.
I want to go to Hong Kong.
Definitely what I wanted to do.
Use my Japanese and not understand a word they're saying. So how did that happen? How did that come about?
Totally necessity. That was a bootstrap thing too. Like I quit. I took some of the relationships from the radio stations and immediately started supplying what the radio stations needed. Coffee mugs, T-shirts, hats, all that stuff. So I already had really kind of orders or relationships in place. So it was kind of an easy transition from one to small business, from big business.
Because they bought stuff
business.
like that.
All the time.
They were handing that stuff out.
I had 6 radio stations that were saying,
you
we'll
spoke
let
the
you
language,
buy it all.
and they knew who you were. You had a name. That was smart. That was a good segue.
Yeah, and a couple years later, we were doing all $900,000 and ran across another company that was a little bit smaller, but had an operations guy and then kind of a personality like me, kind of. And we went on this little road trip together and decided we were gonna join forces, and it kind of grew from there.
Okay, so awesome. This is fun. I like talking about the
necessity,
the story, and how you get to where you get. Because if you talk to most people who are in some sort of career or own some sort of company, rarely does somebody say, "Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to be since I was a kid."
I wanted to be a pilot.
A pilot? Yeah, your dad was a pilot.
Yeah, I wanted to be a pilot for sure.
Yeah,
and I remember I came back from Japan, from Tokyo, and applied to Embry-Riddle in Florida, and got accepted, and thought to myself, okay, here we go.
Is that a flight school?
Flight school, yeah,
Okay.
Big flight school,
Okay.
Embry-Riddle out of Florida, and said, oh, this is it. And they wanted $40,000 for the whole system, to train you, to give you the hours, to put you in, in a position to teach, younger pilots.
Right, so you get those hours in.
Right, and I just didn't have the money at the time. and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get into college, and then we'll re-look at this.
Yeah.
I'd just been married, and it just fell away from me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not very entrepreneurial, being a pilot. Although your father had a very successful career as a commercial pilot,
Post-pilot.
and is now an entrepreneur.
Doing
Doing
big
entrepreneurial things. Yeah. But has a cushion, has a fallback, a check that comes every month.
Yep.
Not a lot of bootstrap. Well, he's still bootstrapping. I know your dad
He's
bootstrapped
bootstrapping.
quite a bit, right? But I always thought, man, that'd be nice to have that little cushion. But that's just not where we're at. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. So you understand what bootstrapping is. Let's talk about battle scars. So my definition. Well, no, I want to know what your definition is, because when I say bootstraps and battle scars, it means something to me. So when I say that to you, what is that battle scar? What does that sound like to you? What do you think of when I say, okay, Brad, what does that mean?
That's lessons learned that can be applied, that help you make a different decision in the future, is what I would consider a battle scar. There's broken bones, but those heal, right? And you get a lot of those along the way, but the battle scars are like, look, I almost got my head chopped off in that deal, and I can show you the scar from one side of my neck to the other.
Right.
And this is what I learned.
Right. Hopefully this is what you learned.
Well,
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, how many times do we have to get that scar to, and learn over and over again to finally wake
Right.
up and go, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Right.
Shouldn't do that. So share with me some battle scar moments. Like, I want to know some lessons learned over the years, because you've done the radio, you went into the entrepreneurial world, you started a business. I know you've done other things since then, but share with me some battle scar moments that kind of resonate.
So I'll give you a lesson learned from battle scars, because I don't want to throw necessarily names under the bus, because that's not, that's history, and we all make decisions, and we all, maybe rethink those decisions later in life. But something that I've learned that I have lots of entrepreneurs ask quite a bit, or people, I want to get into business with so and so, or I'm in business with my family. Let me tell you what the problem with that is. The thing that I've learned based on experience with former partners,
Okay.
is that partners are good. I hear lots of people say, I can't have a partner, right?
Yeah.
I'm a control freak. I can't have a partner. I'm greedy. I can't have a partner. I'm better than him. I should be the only guy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've learned that partners are good. It's just the right partners are good.
Okay.
Not every partner is going to be good. And it's kind of like a marriage. You got to vet, talent and commitment and ability and, perseverance, qualifications. You got to bring it all to the table and hope that it's all legit. You hope that they're still committed. You hope they're committed for the long term. There was kind of sayings in the partnership world, like, when the business is good, you can't find your partner, or you can find your partners. When you're making money, all the partners show up, right?
Yeah.
But when you're not making money and you're dealing with debt and you're getting invoices factored and all these things, where's the partners? They're nowhere to be found, right? When you're doing,
They're not going to touch you with a 10-foot pole.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. So good partners are pretty valuable. Bad partners, not so much.
Okay, so you have been in some partnerships. We both had partnerships,
Right.
and we've had good ones, and we've had not so good ones. So how would you, from what you've learned, moving forward when a partnership opportunity comes up, because you said you have to vet the person, you have to make sure they're in it for the long haul. But like a marriage, sometimes that changes, right? Sometimes we think we got it and everything's great, but then things change.
Yeah.
So what lessons have you learned in regards to that partnership relationship? Are there things you would do differently in that relationship? Because you started, I know you've been in partnerships that have struggled. So what would you do differently going into a new partnership that maybe you didn't do back then?
I think you look for the red flags and acknowledge them. You don't just say, I'm looking for reasons to get away. I think you look for red flags that trigger what you've learned to that point, right? So if somebody's bad with money, right, is that a concern? Is a partner, is he bad with money? Is he greedy? Is this introduced? Does he have a history of mismanaging funds, that kind of thing. Some of it's not really readily accessible, right?
Or even obvious up front.
Or especially obvious,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you got to take them for their word, but
Everyone's
but
putting
you should,
on their
you
best
should
show.
look into things,
Yeah.
but also listening to what they're saying too, right? Because a partnership should be pretty transparent and honest, and I'll for the rest of my life, if anybody comes in and says, I want to be so rich that the world looks at me and says, look how rich he is, that's a bad trait for a partner, right? Unless they're saying, let's be rich.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the way it's framed sometimes
Yeah.
that should tell you what's going on here, right? Are we in this together? Because live together, die together kind of thing. We're both raising money together. We're both putting our houses on the sheet, for the bank to come and repo if it goes south, right?
Yeah.
Or is it just me? Or is it, that kind of thing?
Right. And when you're young and you're excited about this business opportunity, sometimes you're blind to what that partner is saying or doing. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because you sometimes overlook some of these red flags and some of these things, and because you're so excited to get going, you're like, oh, we'll figure it out. But
It's anybody who says, it's not personal, it's just business. That to me, no.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because business and partnerships is personal.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so here's a question. I've got a couple more questions. Okay. If you were sitting across from your younger self, so pretend like I'm young Brad Davis. I'm going to sit a little lower, be a little more, I'm Brad Davis.
Yeah.
I'm sitting across the table from you today, and you want to share something with the young Brad Davis, some sort of nugget, some sort of advice, what would you say to the young Brad Davis based on your knowledge of where you're at today?
I would say anybody you interact with, consider it a bridge for the future. Because those who burn bridges, that you hear all the time, he burned his bridge on that one. Mm-hmm. Anybody you interact with, especially if it's in business, right? You meet somebody, you interact with somebody, you do a deal with somebody. You want to get to the end of that interaction or that deal with the ability to go back to them and say, how about another one? There's one-off deals all the time, right? But
yeah.
And competition kind of reduces that dependable relationship that you want to have going forward, forever. But
right.
But if you can do business and say I can go back to that original relationship, and they would want to do business with me again.
That's great advice, because thinking. I think, who was it, Stephen Covey, that said something began with the end in mind. And if you began a relationship thinking, okay, I'm going to build a bridge and I want to be able to cross that bridge again, that changes how you interact. That's really great advice. That's really great advice.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
And let me just add to that. I would keep learning. So something I learned about 10 years ago is the more education I got, the more books I read, go to a seminar, go to hear somebody speak, affiliate with people who are smarter than you, willing to share their information. I read this book called Failing Forward.
Yeah.
Is that Gladwell? It's
Malcolm Gladwell, maybe.
Failing Forward, but it's a book about all the problems, and all of your failures aren't failures necessarily. It's how you take the failure and proceed to the next opportunity that makes the most sense for the future.
Right. Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, so then you've got some young entrepreneur sitting across from you. This isn't you now. This is some other
it's not me. Okay.
Random entrepreneur sitting across the table, and now he's asking you for, hey, Brad, I'm getting ready to start my journey of entrepreneurship. What piece of advice would you give me? Would it be the same advice? Would it be something different? What would it be?
I would give that advice, but I would also say, what's your idea? Like how well thought out is your idea, right? Do you understand the entry and what it's going to take to get into that? Do you understand how to scale it? Is it scalable? Are you asking yourself all the right questions? Are you affiliating with the right people to help you understand you're going to need $100,000? No, you're actually going to need $1 million. because you can start and with $100,000 you burn so fast that you go, well, now what do? I need more. I didn't think I would. I mean, so ask more questions, investigate it more, really research what you're doing, get all the pieces in place first before you just launch.
So the more research, the better understanding they have of what it's actually what's really going to take. And like you and I know, you say it's going to take $100,000, but you know it's never enough, right? So you say, okay, well, I'm going to go raise 200,000. Just, because we know that. We've been down that road. We've both had businesses that maybe we just kind of ran out. We're like, oh boy, now what? Now we got to go factor some invoices or whatever. Right. Okay, so now here's the final question.
Okay.
Now, there is no right or wrong answer.
Well, that's good. I like those questions.
Yeah, you like that. But I want your honest answer.
Okay. Whether you like it or not?
Well, I think so. If I don't like it, maybe we'll cut.
Okay, that's good.
Because we have that ability. No, but the question is, if you could go back. Well, let me reword this question. Would you do it all over again?
I would do it differently, but I would do it all over again.
But you would do it all over again. The battle scars,
valuable.
The bootstrapping,
inevitable. I mean, unavoidable in
it's
some
just
cases.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. So that's what I wanted to talk about, Brad. Is the whole idea of this podcast is I want to talk to people who have that experience, because you and I both were part of an organization 20 years ago where the whole focus was experience sharing.
Right.
We didn't give each other advice. We could hear each other's stories, and then we would dig deep into our Rolodex and share an experience that somehow related to what you're going through.
Right.
And so I want that same idea with this Bootstraps and Battle Scars. And so having you here, sharing your experiences, and your the stuff you said just now about what you would tell your younger self and what you would tell the young entrepreneur is huge.
Yeah.
Right? Where are they going to get that? And so I want people to be able to listen to this and hear those things and hear those stories, and who knows, maybe someone's going to hear this story and want to go start making coffee mugs. I don't know. You never know, right?
Don't do it.
They might want to go on the radio, and they're probably making the same amount of money. You're probably making way more back then than they make now. So I appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
and
it's a great concept.
And thanks for your time.
It has lots of opportunity.
And
for
you're
you.
number 2.
Well,
number 2.
Someday I'll be number 1, but I'm happy with number 2.
And even on video. Your mom called me and said, Chris Brad's really got a better face for radio.
Yeah,
but
and she's
I'm
right.
like, whatever. We'll put him on that. We'll put it on the video and it'll be great.
Yep. Thanks
so
for
thanks
having
for
me.
coming. Appreciate it. Okay. That's all we got for today.